We are going to go over how to set up a podcast production pipeline in Obsidian. So if you are a podcaster, you are a solopreneur, project manager kind of person, then this is going to be perfect for you. If you don't have a podcast, but you are a solopreneur that works on projects, this is still going to be for you. If you write, if you're a copywriter or any kind of move from here to there and get it out the door kind of a person, this is for you. It's just an added bonus. If you do podcasting, this will be exactly for you. And in order to do this, we are going to be using a plugin that's extraordinary. It's incredible. It's wonderful. And a while ago, I did a review and it had a couple fatal flaws for me that made it not a good option for me to use every day. But since I made that review, I decided, let me go check in on this. And those two things were fixed. I'm not even going to tell you what they are. I might even mention it in the screen share. But you don't need to know about its dating history. You don't need to know who it was to appreciate it for who it is right now. And who it is right now is incredible. You want to know this plugin. So without any further ado, let's jump into it. Back into the demo vault we go. And if you have ever seen me before, you know I like to build this stuff up in real time without making it all perfect and polished. That way you can see some of the places where I stumble and it doesn't make sense. And that way you know that you're not alone when you are doing this yourself. And if you are new to the channel, if this is the first time that we are getting to hang out, I like to build this stuff in real time. You get it. All right. Now, the plugin that we're going to be using is in the community plugins. So we'll go to browse and put in projects. That's what it is. Updated 2 days ago. As of this recording, that is 1.17.3. So make sure that we've installed that, enabled it. Options, we don't really need to go through because you don't have it ready yet. You haven't built any projects, so it doesn't show you options until there are projects in it. So if you went directly here, it says no project yet. So instead of being able to configure it right away and then build a project, you have to go build something, then come back to make changes that would affect the project you just built. So not a big speed bump, but there it is. And we use the command palette and go to projects. Let's just jump straight to create new project. And we will say this is +1 creator podcast. And I do want to set it as default because one thing is that as you are building more projects, they're all going to be in the project's place. And you'll see what that means. But every time that you open the projects plugin, it'll default to one project to show you all the time. So pick the one that you want to see on startup, and that's the one that you will see. And the path to the folder you want to manage, leave empty to use root folder. How about we got all of these movies, canvas. Okay, so let's back up and create a new folder, and it'll be podcast. Or, you know what? I have this folder from the old version of projects. So let's just go ahead and delete all of those. Now it's an empty folder. This time, when we go back in here and we create new project, we'll just say it's the project folder that's not Starforged. There we go. If you're wondering what Starforged is all about, I made a whole video about how to use Obsidian to run an RPG adventure. So if that's up your alley, go watch that too. But that's a completely different topic than what we're doing here. So I don't necessarily need to include subfolders, more settings, location for new notes. Yeah, we'll just put it in projects. and then default name for new notes. We're not going to use any kind of programmatic stuff here. Add template. We'll be able to add a template later. And if you wanted some notes that you didn't want to show up in that folder, this is where you would exclude it from those options. But we will create that project and project show projects. And we have an untitled project instead of the +1 creator one. So you know what? Let's just create a new project and call this one +1 creator podcast. And we will set this as default. And then this as the folder, include subfolders. Yep. Okay. Create project. And now we are in. Now we're in. Okay. And when you're here, you don't see much. It's not that amazing. You're wondering, what's all the hype here? Stick with it. You'll see. So if we are going to have a podcast and we're going to have guests on it every once in a while, the main thing is that you want to keep track of people that you've invited. So you can add field and say guest name. Type is text, default value there. Options, we don't want any pre-filled options unless all of your guests are going to be named Steve or something. And then create field and then add field and then say recording date. And we'll call that a date. Default values there. And then we'll say publish date is there. And create field. We'll add a note and we'll just say that Jonathan, let's do something unique. That's always my go-to fake, thing. One thing that is weird, properties, show all properties. Nope, I want to show this file's properties and it didn't take any. So yay. All right, I'm going to close this out, go back to projects, show projects, creator. There we go. So now I want to say, what is it? Oh yeah, recording date. And since it didn't have a note in the project, the fields that I would have thought it would keep weren't there. It just forgets because, well, there's no entry with this property. So clearly this property doesn't matter and it goes away. So make a note first, then add all of your stuff and we'll call it this, and recording date is there and publication date. We'll call that a date as well. Default there, and then we'll call it stage, and we'll give this an option and say that they are invited, and that will be our option. Then we'll create that stage, say that they're invited, and there's that. But then we want to make sure that we keep track of their information, and as they get it to us, we can put it in the right place. So we can say their website is text, default value, options. We don't want any pre-filled stuff there. So we do that. And then we'll say that this guy's website is that, and socials, and we'll make that text, options. Yep. And default social account would be the Zavant or whatever. And that will do it for that guy. Okay. So as many of these standard things that we want, we can put as properties of each guest that we're going to invite onto the show. Because now that we have at least one fake thing we can start to play around with different views of the information that's in this table. And here is where it gets really cool, because there are different ways to view all of this stuff. So let's look at it as a board and then say production pipeline, add view. So there's no status here because we haven't told it what the status field is. And the status is stage. So we're going to say it's by the stage. So that's how it knows what status we're talking about. This should make sense. So Herbert Fakeman has been invited, but then when he's scheduled for the show, let's make sure that this is pinned and this is pinned, so that will show up. Actually, this is one of those things, was that if this field didn't have a note in it, then it would disappear, kind of like what we've seen already. But it was super frustrating once you even got it all dialed in, kind of like we have it now. It would still go away. If you dragged out the last card, it would vanish. But now you can see that we can drag it in. This is still here. This hasn't disappeared. Hey, look, this is still here. This hasn't disappeared. So my advice is to start it with one stage. Then from this view of the board, you can say it's editing, and then it is uploaded, and then final checks, and then it's live. Okay, so now we've got our pipeline of how these episodes are going to be made. So we can open this and say, okay, the publication date, we actually don't know what that is yet, so we'll clear it out. And the recording date is not going to be today because I'm making this video with you. So let's say that it's going to be on the 24th, and the publication date, for some reason, when you clear it out, it's got, oh my God. So once this is all dialed in, it's great, but there are some hiccups, kind of like when I cleared the date, it changed it from a date category to a text kind of element of the property. So now when we go back to the table, the publication date should still read as a date. Okay, so that's good. Okay. Ugh, I just hate it when it just clears out things and then resets to some default or total blank. But anyway, because now when we can see where this is in the process, we can also then create a calendar view and say it's the recording calendar and add view. So now if we're going to look at it over the next 2 weeks, we can look through and it should show that it's on the 24th, but oh, that's why, publication date. Well, we don't know when it's going to be published yet. We want it to be recording. Hey, and look at that. It just showed up here on the 24th. So now we could make another view and call that a calendar and publication date, add view. And now make sure that publication date is the element that it's checking. Now we'd be able to see the calendar, even at a month view, to see when things are going to go live. And if you schedule out ahead and you aren't just 3 hours ahead of your deadline for it to go live in 3 hours from now, you should be able to see all of your episodes when they're going to go live. And then we can show the whole month and then see when you are going to be recording your different interviews. So I like being able to have a dedicated calendar view for this stage of the process. I like having another calendar for a different stage of the process, because I've gotten those mixed up. You just saw how easy it is for me to lose track of what I'm doing while I'm talking. And then it winds up kind of going sideways. So I like making a different calendar view for every stage of the episode that we're going to be doing. So once I know what day we're going to be recording and that they've gone through the Calendly and scheduled themselves on the calendar, I would move it from invited to scheduled because now they're locked in. And then once we have the conversation, then I know I need it to go into editing and production of that thing. And then the last stage of that is to upload it. But you could also get as granular as you want, or you can say, all right, let's add some of this to the card instead of having it all explicit here. So we can go back to the table view and then say thumbnail designed, and we'll make it a checkbox to see if it has been designed or not. And the default value will be that it has not been designed, but it'll be there so that anytime that you work on it, you can say, okay, that detail has been taken care of. And you could, if you wanted to, kind of open this up and then embed, let's see, attachment, insert attachment, and we can do that from downloads or whatever. We'll just add that here and we'll just call that episode Ethical Persuasion or whatever. And it'll just be here. Then you can either reveal in Finder where it is in your computer, or you can reveal it where it would show up in the navigation for your Vault folders here, which could be the same difference if your Vault is on your computer instead of on the cloud or something. So that's cool. So this way you can keep track of where the thumbnail is without having to go to a separate folder to see that it's there. So you could embed it and then check that box and you're done. If you didn't want it to show up, you can get rid of that exclamation point and then it won't embed the image. But I kind of like to see that the thumbnail has been taken care of and that's it, right? So a lot of what you would want in a template file, you can put into your properties and it's all right here waiting on you instead of doing a template. Or if you didn't do that, if you did use a template instead of these properties, then you wouldn't be able to make these different views of your production pipeline and the different stages of what it is that you need to do. So that's why I would highly suggest that you go with the properties route of all the details that go into this table view, and to always have some kind of default when you are making a new field so that it doesn't get confused that there's no data and then it doesn't know what to do and it blanks out and goes wacky on you, right? So if you have a podcast, you do this. If you have a solopreneur freelancing business and you do other stuff where it's client work, well, then make a client work one, and then you can make your own folder, and then you can get as detailed with this as you want and have it siloed for different projects, and then be able to switch between the different projects, which is weird that this untitled project, we'll just delete it and then see if it deletes the actual one that we've been using. So yeah, okay, no, that's good. And yeah, let's just make a client work folder and then make a new one. Here we go. Not set it as default. by folder, and we'll just call that client work and create project. There we go. Add note. Client A. And we'll just say stage, text, and prospecting. Because for right now, we'll say that it's a board and a deal flow. So now you've got your own CRM for your projects and all that kind of stuff, because we're going to filter by stage and say that this is prospecting. You saw how the no thing just went away. Now, to prevent that, we're going to say scheduled for a call, and then first meeting complete. Then we can be like proposal presented and go through the process here. And now you can have your client work, your creative work, and have it all outlined in one place, which are your projects. So you close that out. You can close that out and then bring it up at any time with projects, show projects, and it will open the default project like the podcast thing. So there you go. For any kind of creative who needs to take a thing through, this is what I highly suggest. And now that we've gone through all of that, I will kind of wrap things up on the good camera. So I looked at the date, and it was actually November 23 when I originally made the video about this plugin. So this is 7 months later. So it has improved in that time. As you saw, there are some quirks and some personality to it. But I chalk that up to maybe I don't think the right way, but also I want my tools to work the way that I would think they should. And that's what I like about Obsidian, is how I can dial it in exactly to how I want it to work. But also you saw that once you do all that setup and the system is in its groove, you don't really ever have to worry about it ever again. So get it right and then don't touch anything, and it should do just fine. But this is exactly how I'm going to be managing the podcast and scheduling guests and then moving them through the production pipeline. And also I will be making a column for random ideas, because it's going to be stories and lessons from my years as a corporate consultant and as a creator, painter and a performer and author, and all sorts of just, I like making stuff. I like making these videos with you. So thank you so much for sticking through to the end. If you've gotten this far, let me know by liking the video. If you like Obsidian and you like creator-oriented stuff and you'd like to make a go of being your own person full-time, then I do highly suggest that you subscribe to the channel, because I make all sorts of wacky stuff about being a creator. Obsidian is a phenomenal tool for it, but there's also a lot of mindset, mentality stuff, and then negotiation skills and business skills and all the stuff that goes around making a full-time living at whatever it is that you're good at. That's my passion in life. So that's what I'm going to be doing with the podcast. That's what I like doing with this channel. So how about subscribing? That'd be good. And in the meantime, please head over to that playlist that I will put on the screen. That is the collection of all the Obsidian videos, including the one that I made almost a year ago about the project management, but it's now the old one. You've just seen the new hotness, so why you don't skip that one. Choose something else that tickles your fancy. And in the meantime of that, remember, if you can change your mind, you can change your life.